Okay, so this is Cup of Tea. My name is Anthony Monteith. Welcome to the podcast. And today I have a special guest, Ciaran McKenna, who I met, I think, about 5 years ago, Ciaran, in a business networking community. And today we're going to be talking to Ciaran about his life, where he is at the moment, what he's been up to, and I suppose the importance of nourishing yourself, looking after yourself in business, especially in sales, because that's what Ciaran's speciality is. So Ciaran, I'll hand it over to you. I know your life, you've done a lot of things, so let's not go too far into it, but give me a brief overview of where you started and how you get to where you were.
Well, Anthony, thank you for the opportunity this morning. My name's Ciaran McKenna from a company called Woodhazel Consulting. It's a husband and wife team. I specialize in sales and sales theory and giving people confidence in promoting and selling themselves. And a lot of that really is just about people being authentic and actually being their best selves. My wife, Rachel, is part of the business as well, and she specializes in marketing. She's a specialist marketing manager. And her main role is to help people to market themselves. And so sales and marketing, husband and wife, we're together for 35 years this year. So next month. So
that's twice as long as I've been with together with my wife. So
well, there you go, and it's an interesting dynamic when you work. Do you work with your wife, Anthony, at all, or have you ever worked?
I have done in the past. We've worked together on projects. You know, I used to do a little bit of work in the corporate sector, but and we were working on projects ourselves in the past. We were going to build a retreat centre down in County Waterford, so that was going to be our dream. But I think it didn't happen for the right reason. And she said to me, you know, she saw what happened to her parents when they worked together, and she didn't want.
Well, it's a different dynamic, and you do have to play to each other's strengths and be there and support each other. And as I say, we both met when we were in college back in the 80s in Dublin. Rachel went to UCD, I went to Trinity. I did economics and philosophy, and she was, when I met her, she was qualifying as a teacher. She was doing her HDIP. Back in the late 80s in Dublin, before you came here, Anthony, it was a very different Ireland, and there was no economic boom, and it was very much recession. And people didn't have expectations that they were going to be working here. And so they did a thing called the milk round, which is where they used to come to the colleges. And in particular, they used to love coming to Ireland because we had a very good, young, vibrant population. And they knew that they could get very highly educated, smart, young people who would be happy to come to the UK and work there. Purely because of the fact that they couldn't convince a lot of UK-based people to come and work in London because there was this thing about London being so expensive.
It was, though. It was. I mean, first time I was in Ireland was 92.
Yes.
And I could see, like, by the time I came back then in 97 to live, and I could see the difference in 5 years. Like, but I remember I had a couple of mates who went to London University to study, and we used to go, how are you doing that? Like, we couldn't even imagine the cost, like accommodation. How is that possible?
Well, you see, again, we a lot of the Irish that went over there, we used to share houses and things like that. So it was it was a hell of a lot cheaper when there was a few of you sharing a house and things like that, and it was all one big adventure. And the graduate scheme was a great thing because they'd bring you over and they'd employ you for 2 years to work in every department in the company. So I went with a company called New Air, who were a big electrical wholesaler. And Rachel went over with a company called Commercial Union, who were a big insurance company. And we both went over as graduate trainees. And the main idea was that you'd be London based. And we couldn't believe they paid us 15% more for living in London. You know, they called it London waiting allowance, you know, and you thought, this is great, this is fantastic. And because it wasn't home, whenever there was an opportunity to go and do a project, say in Eastbourne or Birmingham or Scotland or Portsmouth, I'd go, yeah, brilliant. Send me out. I'd love to do it, because they'd put you up in the hotel and you'd learn your thing. And it's something that doesn't really happen a hell of a lot now, where they would employ you for 2 years without you actually doing anything other than writing reports and learning the business. And they'd invest in you, and they'd see what you were. I was pretty comfortable that I was going to end up selling, that's kind of what I wanted to do. But they wouldn't give you a sales job first off. You had to do admin or purchasing, purely because they wanted to see what you were made of, and they didn't want to give you a car straight away.
Yeah, sure. And they wanted to see, did you have a bit of determination and grit, and for you to understand the business. Like, there's no point selling if you don't understand what you're selling.
And also to be in departments whereby it wasn't as glamorous, and you understood that it was important to get paid, or you understood that it was to buy right. So the first place I went was Crawley, and that's where I did my graduate training, and I loved it. And then the first appointment I had was purchasing manager in Basingstoke. Again, was one of those. Crawley and Basingstoke were similar. They were big industrial estate type places just on the outskirts of London, where loads of people had emigrated literally out of London and didn't want to live there. People commuted in and out, and you noticed there wasn't a hell of a lot going on in those towns, purely because people commuted.
I used to work in a debt recovery office, right? So when I left university, I had a degree in health science. I was a health scientist. You could not get work in England. We were we had Thatcher had gone, and we had this other chap, I can't remember his name, the guy with the glasses, the one.
John
Major, that's it. And the grey man, and the country was I won't mind saying the country was in a shit state, and we'd had the poll tax riots and all that, but there was a lot of debt, so it was really easy to get a job in debt recovery. But I worked with a guy from Crawley, and he had the crew cut, he had the flat top, he had the bomber jacket, and we used to call him the Terminator because he was a serious guy. And I said, "What are you doing up in Lancashire?" He said, "Oh, it's nothing in Crawley. It's just a concrete jungle." And
it wasn't great being Irish there at the time.
No, I remember that.
There was a lot of the Irish jokes, and there was a lot of the Irish,
sort of stuff.
And we weren't the most popular, and you learn to have a thick skin and put up with, because the Irish jokes invariably they weren't that funny really, but it was grand. And then you opened your mouth, and sometimes you get a bit of reaction, and people would say stuff.
I noticed that more in southern.
It turned on its head in the 90s. Actually, it went the complete opposite, where actually it was really cool and nice to be Irish. And
Riverdance, thank you. Riverdance, thank you.
Yes, and also maybe Boyzone. Because as I say, you two, to me, were vital, because they, growing up in the 80s, it did make you proud to be Irish, no matter what. They were the biggest band in the world, and again, they said things with a positive message. I know it's not cool to say you like them now, but they brought a hell of a lot to the Irish economy. People literally coming to see where you two were from and things like that. And but London was brilliant, and it gave me my first opportunity to get into sales when I actually did eventually get on the road. I got a patch in central London between the A23 and the A3, and you literally came out from central London the whole way down as far as Crawley, and it was brilliant. And when you were in central London, it didn't make any sense to drive. You just got on the tube and you walked. You walked into places, and as I say, if you went onto a building site, that's when it was bloody brilliant being Irish, because everyone on it, they were all working there, and you got past people, and you won orders on the fact that there was Irish contractors there. And you were totally motivated by just the job and you loved it, and actually you got into the fact that you were selling, and that people bought from people, and you learned very quickly that if they liked you, the orders went up, and you learned very quickly that if you went in and you went and were nice to people and gave good service and were particularly memorable. And me having a name like Ciaran was a very difficult thing, because I kept the spelling Ciaran, and they couldn't say my name.
Yeah.
They never forgot me.
I struggled with the names like Neve and Saoirse and those kinds of names, and Blanad. It was like, what the heck is this?
Well, Ciaran was Kyrian, Syrian, carry on, but they never forgot you. When you handed your card in, they remembered that was the guy with the name. Yeah. And I never had a problem from that point of view. And I always recommend people to actually present their business card with very, very confident air that you're proud to be who you are. And actually, when you explain that to people, that's part of the call. It breaks the ice. And it means that that's rather than just someone bland who might be X, Y, or Z. But pretty soon when I was on the road, I realized that actually what I really loved, apart from the selling, was actually sales management, and actually who could be good and why you'd be good and what things were, how you build a sales team. Because I was part of a sales team, and I thought to myself, do you know what? At that time there weren't that many non-Irish in the team, or sorry, non-white English speakers. They were all they had an electrical background, or they had they were very much local. And I believe that actually it made sense, in particular if you were in London, to have a diverse team and to have a team that reflected the fact that there were more women in coming into the business now, and there were more people from my background, from Asia and things like that. So that's why London was a very interesting at that time, because Ireland wasn't like that. As you remember, when you first came to Ireland, we first population at that stage, were we? So I suppose my major thing that I really wanted to do then was to actually build my career in sales and sales management, and at the same time, Rachel built her career in marketing and marketing management, and both of us were very people coming into the business and actually building them up and making. Oh, is there a problem, Anthony?
Yeah, sorry, my internet just got a bit unstable there. Can you just go ahead and say, you were talking about how you'd preferred the sales force to be more diverse in culture, and then you were talking about how you met Rachel, or how you hooked up with Rachel in London.
Well, no, we got together before.
Oh, okay.
We met before we went over.
Oh, okay, all right. So the two of you were living in London, and you got this stretch, this patch, if you like, that you were very successful in.
Yeah, and I suppose where we're at really at the moment, Anthony, is I'm back now doing that role in consultant, trying to help people to actually be the best of themselves, because that was my favorite job. When we came back to Ireland, it was for family reasons, and that was 17 years ago. And that career kind of goes out the window because my mother wasn't well, and my father wasn't coping very well with it. And you get one chance, and myself and Rachel decided that it made sense to come back to Ireland, just as our daughter Ailish was coming to her the end of primary school, and I suppose that's where things like we're having this discussion now about life and where life takes you and what you do, and you come to these crossroads in life. Like I could have stayed in the UK as a regional sales manager and been very corporate, and the same with Rachel. She'd have been a regional marketing manager in the company that she was in, and you know, we'd have had a very nice, comfortable life in South London, and but you have to think about why are you doing things and what's important to you, and is family where you're at, and so that's where we made the decision to come back to Ireland, and it was a phenomenal decision from the point of view of actually reconnecting with a new country and a very different Ireland. By that stage, when did you come to Ireland, Anthony?
I was traveling here since 92, but I moved here in 97. I made a conscious decision. It was actually the week just before Diana passed away in that crash in the tunnel in Paris. And I was living in the west of Ireland. And I remember the family I was living with, they woke me up and said, oh, you know, Princess Dia's dead. And thinking that I'd be like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, okay. Because, you know, I think there's like an assumption that every English or British person is super royalist, but I never really was. You know, I had a fascination with them, but I wasn't really into it.
Hers was a tabloid case anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was like, that was a pivotal moment for me, because it was like, oh, okay. And then I felt like that I'm okay with that lack of attachment to Britain. I mean, the first 6 years living here was a little bit up and down because there's a cultural adjustment, you know, because I was very direct in business, so very like black and white, get the job done, Northern English kind of both, you know. But because my parents had traveled, I was a little bit more, I suppose, worldly wise, understanding different cultures and stuff. But then, I mean, later on, as the years went by, I realized I actually had a lot of Irish heritage in my family, going back to Donegal and stuff like that. So I think.
Did you know you had it?
I didn't really know I had it. I knew I had it by birthright, but you know, it's kind of a long, convoluted story about my dad's real father. He was born in Donegal, but before it was Northern Ireland. You know, before Northern Ireland that whole thing was created. So he was born in the 1800s, died in the 60s. So it's, you know. It is within me. And then I found out about Captain Robert Monteith, of course, who nobody really mentions anymore. And I was quite disappointed when we had.
He wasn't like Captain Boycott, was
he? He was like friends with. He was friends with Casement, and they worked together to get, you know, Casement got tried and hung in London. But he escaped. I suppose because he escaped. You know, he escaped to New York. But he was from Newtown Mount Kennedy originally. But I mean, Monteith isn't obviously an Irish name. It has Scottish roots. Monteith, Mountain of Heath.
As does McKenna. It's all different clans. Like ours was the Mackenzie clan and the Kenners and things like that. And the McKennas.
There was a Scottish king that ruled Ireland. In the 1600s. So. And even before that, so it's you know, do you know what I mean? It's the Scots and the Irish are more closely related than they think.
Oh, 100%. And in fact, when you look at when you go up onto the border counties there, like where you were talking about Donegal, as I said, the McKennas are very strong in Monaghan and Tyrone and places like that. And the other side of my family were the Burns, who again were very strong in Wicklow, and but they were all clans and they were all families and they all fought, And the McKennas are a renowned fighting family. And I think the Monteiths probably are as well. But
they were Monteiths were knights, but they were like, I suppose, knights for hire.
Yeah.
Mercenary sort of family. They would have worked for the Graham clan in Scotland, and they would have sided with more towards royalty than towards William Wallace and his stuff. They realized that it, as nice as it is to have the romance of Scottish freedom, they understood, if you want power and money and glory, you've got to side yourself with the people who've got power, money and glory, And I think a lot of that happened in Ireland too. And we could even sort of say that even De Valera was doing that a little bit as well to keep power in Ireland, So, yeah.
When you're talking clan and when you're talking family and you're going back to those generations now, for me, it was a case of coming home, but it was coming home to a very different Ireland and a very different family and a very different and much more positive country because I came back in the boom. 2005 was lit.
Yeah.
We had a 5-bedroom house in Purley, and for the exact, which is a lovely part of London in South London, right in the stockbroker belt.
Nice.
And we got a bedroom house in Rathfarnham. Because that's the way the prices were, and that's where it was at, and because my job initially, I came back and got into the electrical wholesaling and got into sales management again, but we knew that was only going to be for a year or two. Well, as we settled Eilish into school in Ireland, and Rachel didn't work for that time. She got her settled in and was part, and we had a kind of regime with helping with my mum and support. And but when it came to look for a flexible job, it made sense that it was my job that did that, and that you'd look to get agencies and stuff like that. So that I could have the flexibility because I was working for myself, and that was a new kind of thing as well, where you actually have your own business and you're actually on a contract for. You're not actually the end user, and so probably when you came over to Ireland first, your biggest problem was probably getting paid, Anthony, was it?
Yeah. Well, actually, what was interesting. I came in 97 and money was starting to come, and it was that state where you could go into a job on a Monday, leave on the Friday, and start a new job on a Monday. It was getting that crazy.
What were you doing at this stage? Were you doing, because you weren't doing what you do now?
No, so I qualified as a health scientist in 95 university. I could not get work in England. There was just nothing in that field. It was just impossible to get into. So what I had to do was, hold on a second here, something going on with my Zoom, is I had to get a work. So when I was here, I got a job in admin. So I was working for, I'm sure you remember ESAT Digiphone. We used to call them ESAT Dodgy Phone.
Yes.
I worked with them for a couple of years, and that got me back up into Dublin. So I worked there.
And was that in credit control or what? Or?
That kind of stuff, yeah. Debt recovery sorts, the stuff that I'd done in England that I knew. But I always had in the back of my mind to get the therapy going, and I'd even approached a couple of sports colleges and gyms and stuff like that in Limerick, and people had said, yeah, come down, we need a physical therapist. It was only when we got to Dublin then it really sort of kicked off, because I think people were more multicultural. It was even not super multicultural, but it was more like that, and there was just more people, more population. It was easier to land clients. People understood what happened.
Well, we were actually getting people coming into Ireland, whereas it was just everyone was on the boat out. And so you had whole communities coming to Ireland as well. The Polish community, the Nigerian community, and it was brilliant, wasn't it?
It was amazing. Like myself and when I met my wife, eventually we invested in renewables. renewable energy, because that was the thing in Ireland. Everybody was into that. They were building these wind farms, and that was great for us. That helped us a little bit get to where we wanted to get to financially at the time. But I think what happened for me was it was like the beginning of a journey, because I'd actually been involved in martial arts. I'd injured my knee. I was having problems recovering. I was switched on to Chinese medicine for that. I'd had an operation in Dunleary. And it was through that, with having the physical therapy qualification from the UK, which I'd studied for the 2 years post-grad, it just made sense to me. I was in my, early 20s. I thought, right, I'm big enough, bold enough. I had a massage practice in England out of my apartment where I was living.
And that was from your qualifications that you'd had?
Because, there wasn't any work. So I had to kind of make work for myself. So I was teaching martial arts. I was working a day job, and I was treating people in evenings. So I had like 3 jobs on the go, just to kind of survive. I mean, you could survive on very little in Northern England. Like the apartment I lived in was 22,500 to buy brand new. My car was £650, and it ran for 2 years, no problems, an old Nissan. You didn't need much to live on. Like car insurance was £300 a year. You didn't have mobile phones, right? There was none of that. Gas and electricity was very reasonable. So it's just, it's like a teacher of mine says, it's not the amount you earn, it's what you do with what the amount.
I lost you there.
Sorry. It's not how much you earn, it's what you do with what you're earning.
I'm perfect with you, John.
Say again?
You're frozen.
Okay, hold on a sec. I'm going to stop the call and restart it. Is that okay? Because I think my internet is, I can edit this anyway. So I'll stop and then restart. Okay.
This is what I learned about coming back to Ireland and working in, and actually what motivated me and why you do things and where you're at. And because I had come back not for career and was actually doing the work, I actually tended to do work that I liked to do. And I tended to deal with people that I liked. It didn't always pay as well.
No.
It sometimes wasn't the greatest decisions, but because I was working for myself, you could try different things and you could learn different things. And the corporate world was very different. And so the corporate world in the UK, as you say, was very structured, and it was brilliant. And I learned techniques, and you got great opportunities and great training, and great support. So, as you said, in Ireland, it was very cavalier when you came back, and it was it was very much about who was popular, and some of those places it took a little. Certain towns you had to know who the right people were and things like that. So I suppose all the combination of 17 years in the UK and 17 years back in Ireland, and all the different sales and different roles and different versions and different motivators kind of have led me to believe that actually the job I'm doing now is to help people to help themselves, to maximize their personality in themselves, to become the best version of themselves, to be able to sell themselves. And I suppose the person you have to sell yourself to first is yourself. And a lot of people kind of think selling is about, I have to put on a performance, or I have to be a certain way. And people see through that, don't they? They
yeah. At some subconscious level, they'll say, "Oh, that was nice, but there's something a little bit," that subconsciously it's not authentic. I've had this a lot when I've gone to buy a car. and the guy's immediately I can tell he's using a technique on me, to get me to say yes. Oh, it's a nice day, isn't it? Yes. Oh, it's a lovely color, isn't it? Yes. Oh, it's, it's like, how many yeses can I get at? And I'm like, yeah, just stop, And nowadays, and I know, when you go to buy a car, you've pretty much made up your mind you're going to buy that car. It's, just get in the car, take it for a spin. Do you like it?
But also the other thing to remember is it is also that it's not about that sale. It's about the fact that that person might know other people and they could refer you, or it might be that that person has got family members that might want a car, and so people can be very short term when it comes to selling. They think they have to win the order. It's not. You have to provide the service. You have to invoice correctly. Yeah. You have to be able to not get it right sometimes. And people will always remember the people who actually sorted out a problem when things went wrong, and who you go back to. And I suppose being authentic is really key, because people buy from people, don't they? And in what you in the role that you do, it's absolutely vital, because people trust you with so many key parts of their lives. It's their health.
People open up your heart to you. It's not like just dealing with bad backs, necks, and shoulders. I have a guy coming in at the moment I'm treating, and his various issues, and then sort of 2 or 3 sessions in, we're talking about life. We're talking about life and what he's been through, and relationships and family, and it's like, it's more than just treating him for physical pain, and
it's not you telling him stuff, is it? It's you listening.
I'm listening, but I mean, if he wants to, I'll be as honest as I can. I don't obviously reveal too much. Some of my oldest patients, 15, 20 years with me, they know more about me. How's the kids? How's the house? Because they've been so long. They've become part of that network, that what I call the ambassadors. They're the ones that.
Well, are those the kind of people that they are actually your salespeople? They're the people who,
they're the people that tell,
and they go out and they say, do you know that Anthony Monteith is a really good guy? If you have this, if you have that, he's the bloke, and you don't even know they're doing it.
No. But if I go through my intake forms, and I did this a few years ago as an experiment, I used to put in who referred you, and 93% were friends or family, neighbors. I can tell you 7%, the remainder, only 1% was internet. Only 1%, despite, you can do all the SEO, all the optimization.
That's what I was about to say. And people will be telling you, you need to spend an absolute fortune doing this, and you need to do that. And why haven't you done this? And why aren't you on that website? And why aren't you doing direct marketing? And why aren't you doing direct mail? And why aren't you doing this? And that's all spending money without having achieved anything. Whereas you, through giving good service and through being really good at what you do, and through actually being a good listener and giving a thoroughly far-sighted service for years, your best form of marketing is also your best form of selling.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have a mentor in the States, and she would say, that she would actually handwrite letters. She would sit down once a month and just pick 5 or 10 clients, handwritten letter, and she'd either give it to them or post it to them and just say, thank you so much for your support, for trusting me, for coming to my clinic, for referring people to me. And she would do this quite a bit, and she'd do it particularly more so with clients maybe that she hadn't seen in a while. So it was a good way of, because I always say to all my students, 20% of your clients pay the bills. Right? Those 20%, the repeats, the returning customers, pay the bills. 80% is new blood. It keeps the cogs turning. It keeps the wheels, it gives you new things to work on. It also gives you new opportunities to meet new people and see what transpires out of that.
And it's also, you are going to have attrition because you are going to lose customers, and you will, you can't be perfect, and you will have where they fall off and just decide, do you know what, it's not.
Yeah.
Or other ones who you've actually cured them, and much and all as they love you, there's no point in them coming. They still might come for other aspects of your service, with regard to the health food or the ingredients or stuff.
I always say to my students, there's going to be one client, and that one client is going to be the game changer. It's going to be the game changer, but it's you maintaining that consistency in your approach. Even if you're under pressure, under stress, you're very busy, try to remain some level of quality of treatment. And I had this lady who'd hurt her back, and she was a community nurse, and I was able to slot her in, get her sorted. Within 2 or 3 days, she was out of pain, and she thought this was a miracle because she'd been to everybody. Just so happened it was timing, it was the right approach, the right technique for her, the right medicine for her. She was cured. She went and told everybody in her community. Every single house call she made, she was handing out my business cards. Go to this guy. Oh, you've got a shoulder pain, go to this guy. Oh, you've back pain, go to this guy. Oh, you've hurt your ankle, go to this guy. So she sent me about 40 clients. Now, I did the research on this. The average Irish person knows 500 people in their circle. And now some of those people are close, some of those are distant, but they know at least 500 people in some sort of social network. That's quite a lot of people. In the UK, it's half that. So you only need one Irish person to refer to one other person, and then they have access to another 500 people that could possibly be referred to you. So to me, it made sense to come to Ireland, to work in Ireland, to do the therapy in Ireland, because my girlfriend at the time said, Irish people, that's what they do. They go to church, they go to GAA, they go to the community hall, they go to the dance halls, they go to bridge, they go to soccer.
I was about to say, it depends on the sport. My background is rugby, so it would be club, and then but GAA is everything, isn't it? Like every part of the community.
Yeah, it's changed. I mean, even for me, I see all the posh estates in Dublin now, they're all doing GAA, even though most of the parents probably never played it and they don't even understand. But it's a fashion. My sons, because of Dublin, for example, Dublin have done so well in the football. So now every part of Dublin is promoting GAA football, and it's a big business. The GAA.
It's the same. Hurling's really on the up in Dublin, and as I say, it's not just Dublin, because it's the community, isn't it? It's where we're from.
Yes.
And so when you come to up where we're from, we've Ballyboden, St. Enda's, we have Temple Oak, Sing Street, we have Fogs, GA, but it's all about the community, and it's all, and in my case with the rugby club, it's Turner College Rugby Club, and when they got to the final of the Leinster League last year, because the whole community went to Lansdowne Road for the final. They were playing half, so it was north side against south side.
Yeah.
Rugby had kind of got away with that because Leinster and Munster are big kind of franchises. But rugby now has actually regrown itself now in the community, and actually club rugby, people are looking to go back and watch it, because there's not those big hits that you're seeing because again, rugby is a different game now, but there's some serious injuries happening, whereas at the club game, you're still seeing people who are in the community with you, and who you could have a pint with, or who you can have a laugh with, whereas the corporate football and the corporate rugby, it's a different beast, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I treated guys who played for Colester. I traded one international who played over in Toulouse. I treated a young lad who was trying to make it into Leinster, and I see the injuries they got. They've shoulder injuries, concussion, they blow out the knees a lot. It's a tough sport. It's a really tough sport.
Concussion is going to be massive, isn't it?
It's huge. I mean, there's massive research now into the use of psychedelics at a therapeutic dose for concussion. I favor the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which is it's like being in an aircraft. and your body's compressed and they force oxygen into your body. That's very good for head injuries. So there's a lot of things we can do now to help people with that. I mean, the famous boxer Mike Tyson has been, dosing himself with magic mushrooms because he said that's helped him a lot to recover a lot of his brain function that he lost from being. I mean, he wasn't hit that much, but he took a few big shots in his day. So
if you look at that England Rugby World Cup winning team, like you've got the hooker there, Steve Thompson, and he's got dementia. Like it's savage.
Yeah.
And people have to be very careful about what they're doing, don't they?
I have a friend, George, in Canada, and he as a kid he was diving off a diving board into a pool, and there wasn't enough water in the pool, and he hit the bottom of the pool and cranked his neck, and ended up with a problem with his spine. And then he used to do a lot of windsurfing, wing foiling, and stand-up paddleboards, and he's had a few nasty spills, banged his head off the board and whatever. So he definitely says, like, it can affect you, and it can affect your mood, and it can come and go, because the brain is injured, and the brain is very good at separating itself from the rest of the body for protection purposes. So it can take a while for that to heal. And because of the blood-brain barrier, it can be very selective about what sort of substances it will allow through that barrier.
So what you're saying is there is something at your practice for pretty much all of those kind of things, but it's...
Well, there are certain things I won't treat. There are certain things that I've struggled with. By
the way, that's one of the top rules of sales is just what you've just said there, which is actually honesty and actually saying no.
Yeah.
When someone comes in, and actually they will appreciate it much more when you go, do you know what, I'm not the right person to treat you. I think you need to see X, Y, or Z down the road.
I mean, sometimes you can treat the condition, but you just can't treat the person.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying? It's the person just either non-conforming or has their own idea. I'm always very wary of people who leave me voicemail and tell me what they want. This is what I want. I want this, and then that, followed by this. And it's like, you know what? You need to go to a different practitioner, because I don't treat you using a method. I treat you, and I use methods within that treatment. And it's not...
How much of your methods then is in the questioning? Do you know, when you were talking earlier about when you're speaking to the client and when they first come in, do you use that then as the way to develop their treatment then, is it?
So without going too complex into it, there are different ways of diagnosing within what I do. So one of the key foundations in the medicine is to use observation. So asking, palpation, smelling, listening, hearing.
So the senses.
The senses. And you can feel, like, I think it takes practice. It's not just being intuitive or being a fantastic healer, which does, what one of my teachers would say, you can't fly on talent alone. It's good to have talent, but you do need a method, and you need a solid method and approach that works. And I think when you have that, you get far better results. So
do you test, because isn't it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but quite a lot of people have a some people it's a sense of smell, other people it's a sense of taste, and others it's touch. In other words, or it can be voice or sound, so in other words, people will favor that. And does that adjust the way you might treat them? Because maybe someone, it is all about sound for them, or
well, there are practitioners out there that follow a method and they stick to that method, and everybody gets treated with that method, and it doesn't change, it doesn't deviate. Maybe the prescription will vary slightly, but because of the volume of information that I've been exposed to, and the fact that it's just the way my brain works, I like variety. I don't like to be in a situation where I'm bored. I will go with the flow. So I tend to try to treat people as they are, as they present themselves on the spot. I don't necessarily. I mean, obviously, if something's working, I'll stick with that. Like, I did this method, your back pain's 50% better. Let's keep going until we get to a point where maybe it's 90% better and nothing's working. Then I'll change the method.
I tend to agree with you, because I actually think it makes sense to be in the now, because actually, if you spend all your time back in the past, or you're trying to predict the future, it's pointless, really, because as I say, you don't know. Stuff has happened since you last saw them, and you have to take each case as it presents, don't you? And even though you can take on board some of the stuff that's happened in the past, you have to treat each call as being a new occurrence, really, isn't it? And actually be as focused as you are, because actually, if you're not flexible like what you're talking, it'll be unwanted.
Well, you can assume, and when you start assuming, that's dangerous. You start guessing, that's dangerous. There are times when people say, "Well, do you know why I have that knee pain?" And I'm like, I actually don't know. All I'm going to do is I'm treating you. The side effect of that is the knee pain lessens, because I'm trying to find where the imbalance is in your body. Now, I can definitely say systems I treated before were very much like, "Oh, you've got pain in the knee. Okay, we go straight to the knee." But what changed for me was when I had knee pain and I had the operation and it wasn't going well. And my first teacher was working on my neck and my pelvis and my feet and my back. And I was looking at him saying, like, hang on a minute. I'm paying like whatever it was, 55 punts a session, which was a lot of money in the 90s.
Yeah.
For knee pain. And you've not even looked at the knee. Like, what is going on? And after about 4 sessions, he turned around and went, yeah, and how's the knee? And I went, actually, I don't have any pain. He goes, yeah, because it was never about the knee. So this is the thing with people, is they come with a absolute backpack full of a list as long as your arm of symptoms: headaches, back pain, insomnia, digestive disorders, fungal infection of the toe.
Skin. Dr. Google.
Well, it's not that. It's they're looking for a solution for each thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
Treating the person, you go to the root, and sometimes you go beyond the root, and then these symptoms, which are just warning signs on the dashboard, they'll start to collapse.
If you throw that into the sales routine, then that's exactly where you're at. If people just don't deal with the person, if they're just totally order focused, it's going to kill their business, because you have to deal with the whole person, and you have to think, as we talked earlier, about who do they know and what can they do, but also you don't know what they may need.
Yeah, there are 2 types of patients I get generally. I mean, this is a bit of a generalization. You get those that come because maybe they see the volume and the effort and the work ethic that I have, and maybe they'll come and they'll get a massage and they'll get cupping and they'll get acupuncture and I'll give them some herbal remedies, and then they transact. We have a transaction because my fee is my fee and you pay for that. And there are others that don't really care what you do. They just want to be out of pain. If it's 1 needle or 2 cups or a massage, it doesn't really matter. And if you get them out of pain in 15 minutes and you got them off the bench and you charge them the same fee, it wouldn't bother them, because they don't care. They don't care what systems you use. I've come with pain. I want to be out of pain. They'll do whatever it takes. So,
how much of what you're talking here now is common sense, or how much of it is learned? Or how much of it is actually instinct?
It's a really difficult question. Like, I think so. Obviously, I think there are some people out there that have talent, and that carries them. But you can burn yourself out on talent. We see what happens to famous people. Eventually, the stars, they fall from the sky, right? It's very common. Mood swings, depression, drug take. So flying on talent. If you have a system that you work with, and systems help you, so a sales system, a booking system, an acupuncture training system.
And it can be a nice basic system, one that works for you, and you're with it, isn't it?
But you have to be constantly in a state of personal development. If you really want to excel, you have to be training, learning new things, rolling with the times, keeping up with what's going. You don't have to be at cutting edge.
No.
You definitely need to. The more time you expose yourself to what other people have got success with, success leaves clues. So what changed for me is when I found the best acupuncturist that I could find with the best results that I'd ever seen, and I started learning from him. Now, I may never, ever, 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 ever achieve what he's achieved. It doesn't matter. I only need 10%. I only need 10% of what he's achieved. And that added into the mix. And now I've got 10% more clients that I can help. Right?
And how much of what you learned from him, I would say you probably gave him quite a bit of knowledge as well, purely because you were both learning from each other?
In this instance, I didn't really get to do that because
did you not? Okay.
No, but I did stand up and challenge him on a few things, and I think
good. That's important.
Yeah, he respected me for that. He was like, "Oh, okay," and his attitude was, "Well, if you're getting results for that, do it. I'm not interested." You know, he knew his limitations. He says, "I don't treat this, I don't treat this, and I don't treat this," and I'm like, "Well, actually, I do, and I do, and I do, and it's working." And he's like, "Okay, fine." So that's what I liked about him. Other teachers are very much like lecturers. They just sit there and they just give slides and they just talk about, and you do get a lot, but I like hands-on teaching. This is what I do. This is how it works. Now go away and do it.
You're comfortable coaching and mentoring as well, aren't you?
Absolutely. And I was thinking also, you know, I have a reflexologist in my clinic. I have a massage therapist and I have a hypnotherapist. And I'm the busiest. Now, the reason is, I think, because of the way I work. But these people need help, right? They still need help. They still, you know, the massage therapist said to me, the reason why I'm busier than I used to be, because I copied what you do. I copied the way you interact, the way you behave, even the way you rebook a client in.
And I presume she adapted then
to whatever she did.
Because there's no point in people just taking a PAP system and not adjusting it, because the real work is actually getting a little bit of knowledge and then turning it into Anthony Monteith or Ciaran McKenna, you know, because that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your wood hazel, because I want to kind of wrap up the podcast now and go a little bit into what the latest project you're doing, because I know me and you've talked about. I mean, I think it's important if we can help some of these therapists, you know.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to give people confidence in selling and marketing themselves first and then business. And we're trying to give them a little bit of structure like what we were talking about there, and to help them do it for themselves, because there's no point in we can't be there 24 hours a day, and actually we shouldn't be there. Just the same as when those people, the massage therapist and the Reiki and all those, learn from you. You can't be in the calls with them, but they can learn from you and they can ask questions. And so what we're really trying to do is to offer a service whereby we will actually work with them individually and give them a safe space where they can actually do what we're doing here, talk and listen and be comfortable to be able to do talk about what works for them and what doesn't work. And actually, it's a two-way street. So in other words, that it's a conversation. It's not just you do it this way, because that may not work for them. It's helping them to find themselves, to be able to maximize what they do. And in my case, it's sales, and in Rachel's case, it's in marketing. But we're not going to be the ones who are actually going out doing their selling. No. They're the ones who are doing it. And what they need is a bit of help in coaching, mentoring, training, but know that they have support. And so it's like having your own personal sales manager or your own personal marketing manager. We're not in there doing it for you, but we're in there to say, you know, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Not dissimilar to when I was managing a sales team, and at one stage it went from having 7, 8, 9, 10 people working for me it got up to about 72. You know, you can't, different brands, you can't be with those people all the time. You can only manage a set amount of them. Or if you're going to have days out with those people, you can only really be beneficial with those people when you're with them and you say, look, you don't need to bring me to your best customers, or you don't need to bring me to your worst customers. You just need to use my abilities and experience for what will make you better, because you're already in the job. So we're comfortable that you're doing it. So if you translate that into your business, Anthony, you're already good at what you do, but I might have some ideas and I might have some questions that might get you thinking about what might make your business better, or a bit of structure or a little bit of support. And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, I mean, definitely I can say after this podcast, we'll be having future conversations, because I know I'm in a stage where, you know, I want to help build Jade for the other therapists, because that will support and prop me. So it means I don't always have to be there. And then look at diversification, because I think, you know, I think therapists need to look at different models of income. Don't just rely on the first strategy, which is face-to-face, and which is fine. But as we've seen with COVID, that can drop away. And I know myself and yourself are working on a third model, which is, you know, coaching and mentoring other therapists and helping them, because there's a lot to be learned from the sales process, from the marketing process, but also talking to people who've had success at some level.
And also to help people who are in, and sometimes that might lead into the future where there's a workshop and where people are learning from each other. And some of the best learnings might even come from those that are at the top. It might, someone else who's in the meeting and they go, well, actually, I do this. And isn't it so important to learn from your peers?
Yeah, because I think everyone's had some form of win, and it's getting them to examine why that was, you know.
And so somewhere where we want people to be is, we're only as good as our clients. So in other words, exactly as we were talking about referrals and testimonials, if we're working well with people and they can feel better about themselves and their business is growing, and we give them options, give them choices, help them to take control. And that's the key. Control controllables, and that's you.
Okay. So I want to wrap up this podcast. Is there any other piece of information you want to give to the audience? I know we're going to be in the Pillo Hotel in Ashbourne, 17th of October. Myself, Ciaran, and his good wife, Rachel. And we're going to be there for the whole day, you know, a couple of sessions, one morning, one afternoon. And we'll be taking you through some of the processes that we've used. We'll also be giving you some advice.
But the other thing that people have to come is that they come with an open mind, and they come with the fact that maybe use that as an opportunity to be able to improve themselves and what's working in their practice, what could be better.
Yeah.
More importantly, what are they going to bring? And I know you do this, Anthony, as well, which is the fact that if people come and see us on the Pillo, they have to make a commitment and say, what are they going to do differently from having been there on that day? What are the 3 things they're going to do, bring back to their business and make that happen? Now, I can't tell them what those are. No. It's come out on the day, and people are going to feel comfortable to be able to work, talk as a team. And it is a team thing, isn't it? And so suddenly they can have the likes of yourself who's part of their team. They can have the likes of myself who can be part of their team. Rachel, people who can actually answer questions and know that they're not alone. Because it's a pretty lonely thing, actually, being in business for yourself. And that's what you and I would definitely agree with. One of the disadvantages of actually having your own business is the fact that, you know, it sometimes it's nice to be in the office and there's a load of people there to support you. And that's why people are trying to find their way in this new changing world about working from home and remote working. This is the back to face-to-face. That's why we're doing it in the Pillo. And I know we're going to have a chat maybe as well about doing stuff online, and maybe if there's group work online or stuff like that. But face-to-face is where it's at, isn't it? And people are really comfortable to do it. And October, well, it comes along on Saturday, so people to actually book on
Yep.
to make it worthwhile, really.
Yeah, I'm going to leave the link in the bottom in the description as to what we're doing, and people can follow that link on the podcast. This will be on YouTube, and it'll be fed out to Spotify and other podcasting forums for people to grab hold of. We'll also be sharing it out to the acupuncturists and therapists in the group that I'm in Ireland. If they want to come in and they want to come and work with genuine people who've a genuine interest in helping others and helping them discover their own potential, not what we say, helping them unlock that potential that we all have, then that's the aim of it. So,
in fact, the word is maximize, isn't it?
Sure. So thanks very much, Ciaran, for joining me today.
Thank you, Anthony.
I'm going to obviously have to edit this a bit because we've had some technical issues, but we'll put it together and then put it out there. And I hope people enjoy it.
And thank you very much. And thank you for all the work. And by the way, we would be one of the first to give Anthony a testimonial because he's absolutely brilliant and he knows that. And as I say, we were happy to give him testimonials as well, weren't we?
Yes, I still have it on my mantelpiece.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Anthony.